Let's talk about product prioritization. For any product leader, this is it. This is one of the toughest, but also one of the most critical parts of the job. It's where all your big ideas and strategy have to face the cold, hard reality of a deadline. And you know what? Getting it right is a total game changer. So today, we're going to break down how you can actually master it. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? You're probably sitting on a mountain of fantastic ideas, tons of user requests, and a list of strategic goals from leadership. The problem is, you've got a finite team, a finite budget, and definitely finite time. The real genius here isn't about coming up with more ideas. It's about choosing which few ideas are actually worth doing. So what does this daily battle really feel like? Well, it's a constant tug of war, and you, the product manager, are stuck right in the middle. Let's paint a picture of the forces you're juggling every single day. Okay, first up, you've got your engineering team. And they're brilliant, right? They're itching to build feature A because it's a really interesting technical challenge. It's a chance to innovate, maybe refactor some tech debt, and build something they're genuinely proud of. Their whole world is about technical excellence. At the exact same time, you've got a key stakeholder who is, let's say, strongly suggesting that feature B absolutely has to be in the next release. Maybe it's the head of sales who needs it to close a huge deal, or marketing has a campaign built around it. The pressure here is all about driving business value now. And just to make things interesting, while all of that is going on, you look at your data, your analytics, your user feedback. It's all on fire. The data is screaming that users are struggling and they desperately need feature C to fix a huge pain point. That's the voice of your customer. So who you listen to? This whole dilemma perfectly illustrates why prioritization is a strategic weapon. When Steve Jobs came back to Apple in '97, they were struggling. Did he try to do everything? No way. He famously slashed the product line by something like 70%. He focused on just a handful of things that truly mattered. This wasn't just tidying up a backlog. This was a ruthless focus that literally saved the company. So how do we get that same focus? It all starts with having the right tools for the job. Okay, so how do you actually make these impossible calls? Well, you don't just go with your gut. You need a toolbox. I want you to think of each prioritization framework as a specific tool, like a wrench or a screwdriver, designed for a very specific job. There isn't one best tool. The real skill is knowing which one to pull out of the box and when. Let's start with the first set of tools, visual frameworks. These are absolutely fantastic for workshops. For getting everyone in a room on the same page and fast. You just plot ideas on a simple grid, and suddenly a really complex debate turns into a clear picture everyone can agree on. A perfect example is the impact effort matrix. This matrix is just beautiful in its simplicity. You're just plotting every idea based on its potential impact versus the effort it'll take. So, top left quadrant, those are your quick wins. High impact, low effort. This is your low-hanging fruit. The stuff you do to build momentum and get immediate value out the door. Now, over in the top right, you have your big bets. These are also high impact, but they're high effort too. These are your major strategic projects. They need careful planning, they need validation, because the payoff could be huge, but so is the risk if you get it wrong. Then, down in the bottom left, we've got the fill-ins. Low impact, low effort. Look, these aren't your top priorities, but they can be useful things to work on if there's some downtime. The key is to make sure they never become a distraction from the bigger goals. And finally, the quadrant you need to be terrified of, the bottom right, the money pits. Low impact, high effort. These are the ideas that just drain your team's time, budget, and morale for almost no return. A huge part of your job is to spot these things early and kill them fast. All right, let's grab another tool. What if your team wants to be more data-driven? Well, for that, scoring frameworks are perfect. They basically force you to turn your assumptions into actual numbers. This is how you remove personal bias and solve that classic loudest person in the room problem. One of the most popular is called RICE. So, the RICE framework, which came out of Intercom, scores everything on 4 key factors. First is reach. Simple enough, how many people will this actually impact? Then impact, how much will it affect them on a set scale? Then confidence, how sure are we about all this as a percentage? And finally, effort, how many person months is this going to take? You just multiply reach, impact, and confidence, and then divide that whole thing by effort. Boom, you get a single score you can compare across all your ideas. Okay, our third tool type is a little different. Let's talk about categorization frameworks. Now, instead of plotting on a grid or calculating a precise score, these are all about grouping features into simple, intuitive buckets. It's less about an exact ranking and more about communicating the kind of value something provides. It's all about managing expectations. And the classic example here is the Moscow method. You literally categorize every single feature into one of 4 buckets. Must have, these are totally non-negotiable for the release. Should have, yeah, these are important but not absolutely vital. Could have, nice to have but they're the first to go if you're short on time. And won't have, making it crystal clear what is out of scope. It's such a simple but powerful way to get everyone aligned. So, you've got your toolbox, you got visual grids, scoring formulas, and categorization buckets. But here's where the real mastery comes in. A hammer is a great tool for a nail, but it's a terrible tool for a screw. The exact same thing is true for these frameworks. The stage your product is in should dictate your choice. And look at how different this is. If you've got an early stage MVP, your only goal is to solve a core problem and learn as fast as you can. A visual tool like story mapping or that impact effort matrix is perfect for finding quick wins. But if you have a mature product, your focus is totally different. It's about optimization. It's about delight. A data-heavy model like Rice helps you make really precise choices, while something like the Kano model can help you find those special delighter features that make customers love you. Now, here's the thing. Even with the absolute best framework in the world, you can still fall into some really common traps. And honestly, knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. So let's run through the 6 most common mistakes people make. All right, let's do a lightning round of what to avoid. 1. No agreed-upon scoring guide. What does a high impact even mean? Define it. 2. Mixing discovery, figuring out what to build, with delivery in the same backlog. Keep them separate. 3. Recency bias. That's falling in love with the newest shiny idea. 4. Not considering constraints like technical dependencies. 5. Making the whole process way too complicated. And 6, and this is a big one, failing to iterate on your prioritization system itself. It's not set in stone. So, this brings us to the most crucial point of all. Your goal isn't just to pick a framework off a list and call it a day. Your goal is to build a durable, repeatable system, a process that actually fits your team, your culture, and your product's real-world needs. So what does that look like? Here are the key takeaways. First, remember there is no single best framework. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. Second, create a shared scoring guide so everyone is speaking the same language. Third, constantly groom your backlog, reevaluate those old ideas. Fourth, define clear rules for how you handle things like deadlines and bugs. And finally, and this is so important, treat your prioritization system like it's a product. Get feedback on it, monitor it, and iterate on it to make it better. And that's our deep dive on prioritization. You have the tools, you know the traps to avoid, and you have a blueprint for building a system that really works. So I'm going to leave you with one final question to think about. Your backlog is waiting. What's your first move?